Yes, a way to start my day. I'm gonna go just a little hair down. Look at that. Way better. My head's almost centered now. Maybe it's a slight bit cockeyed. Oh well. Can't be a perfectionist in everything. Ugh. Well, guys, I hope you have a Bible so you can open it and read with me. Good morning to all my friends. Hello, Rick and Susie and Lisa and Arla and Dad and everyone else who's hopping in. So, hi, Derek. Let's take a look at things. Where were we? We only made like one verse, right? We made it to verse 22, where Eleazar, or our unnamed servant here, gives Rebecca the nose rings and the bracelets, right? And so verse 23 instead, whose daughter are you? Tell me, please. Is there room in your father's house for us to lodge? So she said to him, I am the daughter of Bethuel, Milcah's son, whom she bore to Nahor. Moreover, she said to him, we have both straw and feed enough, and room to lodge. Then the man bowed down his head and worshipped the Lord. And he said, blessed be the Lord God of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his mercy and his truth toward my master. As for me, being on the way, the Lord led me to the house of my master's brethren. So the young woman ran and told her mother's household all these things. She's always running, right? Running to fill the water, running home to tell mom and dad what's been going on. Morning, Christina. And so here's a great thing we see, right? Is his prayers got answered. His prayers got answered. And, you know, I'm sure Susie's good for giving us the King James version of verse 27. I want to say, it says being in the way. Is that what it says, Susie? And so there's a couple fun things we can take out of this. And the first is that we can probably forgive Sarah for being late this time. Sorry for all the people who aren't watching live, where you miss all the fun interactions we have with each other. But here's the first thing. Okay, this is kind of good stuff. In fact, it's big stuff. It's huge stuff. It's stuff that we need to understand as Christians. And in fact, I want to say Mark mentioned it at men's breakfast. Being on the way, the Lord led me to the house of my master's brethren. He begins to worship God because God answered his prayers. But there's a big key to these answered prayers. And there's, I think, a big key. I could write a book. I'd sell How to Have Your Prayers Answered. Because it really is like a big key to having our prayers, our specific prayers, answered. And it's those words, being on the way. Being on the way. You see, the old saying, which I can't remember who it is. Spurgeon, who's good chance, but it is easier to steer a moving ship. Now, not everyone's boat people, right? But if you've ever been in any kind of boat, right? It doesn't matter if it's a sailboat, motorboat, rowboat, whatever. You can't steer a non-moving boat. And there's some beautiful pictures, kind of nautical pictures in the Bible. It's funny because, in the grand scheme of things, the Israelites were not really seaworthy folk. You see about them hiring the Phoenicians, the ships of Tyre, of Tarshish, and all this kind of stuff for going on the big voyages. But they still, there were the sailors of the Galilee, and there were those who sailed along the Mediterranean. So, they had fishermen for sure. And these guys got those sailing analogies, drifting and all these other things. But you cannot steer a boat that's not moving. James reminds us how the tongue is like the rudder of a giant ship. In proportion to the size of the ship, the rudder's pretty small. But The catch is this, is that you can turn a rudder, but without motion, without a forward motion. You don't do a whole lot of backwards in boats. Possible, I'm saying, but it's just not a common thing typically. But without that forward motion, you could sit there steering the steering wheel, working the rudder, whatever it may be. The boat's not gonna turn. But if we set our sails, if we start the motor, if we get behind the oars and start pulling, well, then the direction will start to kick in. Something that is hindering far too many Christians is that they're waiting for the boat to start turning before they start pulling. And that's just not the way it works. Being on the way, the Lord led me. You know, when we read about Abraham, when he went to the promised land, God said, I'll show you where I'm going to take you. All I'm asking of you right now is to leave your father's house. Leave your family. And then I'll show you where to go. And that quite often is where all of us are at. In fact, this is not a one-time thing either. This is a very frequent occurrence in our faith. God will give us a simple direction. But until we start moving on that, he will not give us further instructions. And we see this in the Old Testament and we see this in the New Testament. And maybe if I prepared, for our daily bread, I could probably pull up so many examples of this though. And there really are. And I've done whole messages on this principle that we have to be obedient to what has been already given to us before we can expect step 2. Also, when we feel like there is no steps, right? It's not a matter of like, well, I keep not doing this one thing I know I'm supposed to do. What about when you're just thinking clueless? Like, God, I have no idea what you want from me right now. Well, that's when you move anyway. Some stuff doesn't take a whole lot of praying, right? Should I pray? Lord, I'm going to pray about that. Should I be in the Word? Should I set aside time to seek the Lord in whatever way the Holy Spirit moves me? That's one thing with me. I've learned in time to be extremely diligent about setting aside time for God. At least I know I ought to be. But what I do during that time seems to always be in flux. And there are seasons where I spend much more time in the Word. There are seasons where I'm spending much more of that time proportionately in prayer. There are times when I go to pray and I end up writing a song. I mean, that's the idea. Is it's not like, well, I have to do this and I have to. But I do leave that time open. And see, that's part of the moving, right? All right, Lord, I'm going to go to the boat. I'm going to get in the water. I'm going to set sail, and then I'll let you steer this thing where you want it to go. And sometimes when it comes to why God made us, what has God called us to? Every Christian is called to ministry. And this is not the first time you've heard that. You've heard me say it. You've probably heard other people say it, that every Christian is called to ministry. What that looks like is going to be different from person to person, but you are called by God to minister in some way, shape, or form. You are a part, a cog in the gear system of discipleship. You are a piece of the puzzle of soul winning. Whether you're an evangelist or a teacher or a comforter or an assister and a helper but you're part of this. And too often the church is trying to function on the talents and gifts of a few people. And those are simply a few obedient people who are just willing to go wherever they want to go. I'm going to give a little shout out once more to my little buddy, who doesn't have Facebook, so he can't even watch this stuff. But Caleb, you know what Caleb has really no interest in whatsoever? It's children's ministry. I think I brought this up yesterday, and I don't know. I'm just, I can talk about people who can't find out I'm talking about them. I'm happy to talk about them. No, but he really doesn't want to be in children's ministry. He feels awkward around kids. It's just him. I mean, he knows, like, I'll have my own kids someday, and I'll buck up at that point. But until then, I'm hoping I don't have to. But when there's a need, he's like, whatever. Like, I'll go wherever I need to go. I'll just go do whatever I need to do. And that's kind of the thing is, when God puts opportunities in front of you, take them. Go. Start moving your ship. And then all of a sudden, you might fall in love with something you never knew you were gifted by God to do. But we have to get the boat moving. We have to commit to moving forward. And then from there, watch and see what God does. Watch and see what God does once we commit to go. Eliezer, I want you to just travel to a far land and find my son a wife. Where am I supposed to go? I don't know. Who am I looking for? I don't know. Any special qualities? Godly ones. Go figure it out. Okay. Well, Eliezer could have whined about how unrealistic his task was. He could have gone there with the mindset of, you know what? I don't think I'm going to find anyone, but I'm going to go to say I went, and I'm going to turn around and come home. But he went, and while he was going, he's like, Lord, show me what I'm supposed to do, because I don't have a clue, but here I am walking. Here I am moving. The sails are up. I'm going to catch whatever wind you've got. And being on the way, God blesses him. He leads him to where he needs to go, and he accomplishes the task he set out to do. Now, I'll toss this out here, is that I'm pretty sure in the King James Version, it says, I think, being in the way. And sometimes God will do that too. Because as long as you're faithful to try, as long as you're faithful to take some steps forward, even if you're in the way, God still seems to find a way to break through. Even when I get in God's way, I think if God sees me moving, he still will lead me, and he'll work out anything I mess up. So that's the other thing. Some people are afraid of failure. They're afraid of messing something up. But even being in the way, God will lead you where you need to go. I think the one thing God won't do, thank you, Susan, the one thing God won't do is just, it's hard to say what God won't do. So I'm pausing there because, again, I don't want to put God in a box. But God's not going to force you to walk. He'll tell you to walk. He'll tell you, go. And he'll have all these things waiting for you. Good works predestined for us that we might walk in them. Walk in them. Walk in them. Moving forward. And so, guys, quit waiting for God to reveal to you some great plan and just start doing. Just start doing and watch as God opens doors. And even if those first doors that are opened are humble ones, take it. I don't know how many pastors I know who started their career in the parking lot, at the front door, or in the children's ministry. That's whatever it may be. The gardener, I think of Pancho Juarez, he just talks about how he was a Marine and he liked order. And the one place there was no order in the church was the parking lot. So he's like, man, I need to do something about this. And he became the parking lot attendant for years under Raul Reese's church, I believe. And now he's a pastor of this huge church. And I know guys like Anthony Ramirez, I think that's his favorite guy to listen to. Pancho's hilarious. And he blesses so many people. But, he started just by being faithful parking lot guy. But, he just started walking, and God just keeps opening doors. And that's my story too, and I'm not going to get into that again. But, I always just walk through the doors that were open. And now here I am. It's kind of weird, but that's all I've ever done. I see doors, I walk through them, and then there's new doors. And I walk through them, and there's new doors. And I walk through them. And every time, it leads me to greater things, to greater blessings, but most of all, they've always seemed to lead me into a greater intimacy with him. Every time I move forward, I'm also moving closer. I can hear him better. I can sense his presence more. And his peace abounds as I continue to try and walk in obedience closer and closer to him. So, get moving. In whatever. Maybe just being faithful to show up is step one. And then after that, wait and see. A door might open. And just tell yourself, now, all right, Lord, the next time I see a door open, I'm just going to walk through it. And we'll see what happens. The mug's red. I got to drink quick before the temperature goes down. All right, guys. You have an amazing day. It's good to see all of you. Thank you for joining. That's all. You can go now. I'm done. I guess it's like one of those I have to hang up first things, right? Fair enough. Oy, you guys are stubborn. All right. I'll see you guys mañana. Oh, youth tonight. Send the youth.